This bill would allow any full-time public school employee, including a classroom teacher with a handgun carry permit, to carry a loaded concealed firearm and would not be required to take any additional handgun training. This bill would strip all discretion from schools and communities to decide whether to arm employees. There is no evidence that arming teachers will make schools safer. Arming teachers ignores research that shows the presence of a gun increases the risk posed to children. In Missouri, a teacher brought a gun to school and by the end of the day noticed it had been stolen. Police recovered the gun with a student. In Florida, a teacher was showing elementary students how to do a backflip. A loaded gun fell out of his waistband. A teacher in Alabama unintentionally discharged his gun in a classroom of first graders. Most Americans prefer to give teachers the freedom to teach without their having to worry about being ready to kill.
I don't see how I should be expected to ignore a firearm in the room that I'm trying to test in. Let's make learning environments that promote anti-violence and compassion, not hostile and unnerving militarized classrooms.
During my time as a teacher, I have seen students leave in ambulances after horrific fights. I myself have been injured by attempting to break up a student fight. I've seen teachers snap under stress. I have seen a parent attack a principal in a meeting. I once had a student grab a pair of scissors from my desk and tell me that she was having urgent suicidal thoughts. These scenarios could all have become fatal with a gun in the room. Allowing all teachers with permits to carry guns would only become another way for our public schools to fail the children of Tennessee, especially children of color and students living in poverty. Our most vulnerable students would be more likely to face the grim consequences of a gun being misused in school. We need safer schools, but this proposed change will not give us safer schools.
If there's guns attached to teachers in classrooms, they need to be in what's called retention holsters, which is what law enforcement wears. Retention holsters are large, and truth be told, if they're in retention holsters, they need to be attached to a gun belt. And if they're attached to a gun belt, they need to be attached to a uniform and a badge. There's so much more that goes into this and the level of training that it takes.
It's very concerning for law enforcement across our state. You have folks that will leave weapons in their purses, desks, jackets, and etc. A responding law enforcement officer coming to a school for a serious incident there will not be able to differentiate between a teacher or an employee who's trying to do a good thing and protect students. Let's let our trained law enforcement officers worry about the law enforcement in these schools and let the teachers focus on the teaching.
The training of a handgun carry permit holder is just not adequate in this very, very delicate environment that they will be operating in.
I agree with about 90% of what was already testified. This is not about arming teachers for them to be the security arm. Having a 17-year-old and a 15-year-old in a public school with over 2,400 students and one SRO, it begins to make you wonder. When the Parkland shooting committee came together, they felt like that allowing teachers to carry a gun might have saved lives. If they're holed up, say in this committee room, and the active shooter comes in, they would have more than a stapler. My fear as a parent and a taxpayer whose kids are in public school is that we have this discussion after this. Let me get this bill out of committee and let's get together.
Why did you drop this on us in the last 48 hours?
I drafted this amendment long before that. I delivered it to your committee on Friday. I didn't know that this was the last committee until last Wednesday.
Where should I leave my gun when I'm moving around school during the day?
They could take it and leave it in the vehicle.
I spent 3 hours with the Marshall County, Kentucky people where they had a school shooting. Don't you think it'd be a good idea to arm your teachers? And they said, absolutely not. They said that would be the worst thing we could have done. Having taught school in K through 12, I'm just not in a position where I can support this at this time.
I would hope that someone, if there was an active shooter on campus, had a gun in my child's classroom with extensive training that maybe our SROs have to go through. I think it's a discussion worth having.
The state of Tennessee has $1 billion surplus, and this General Assembly doesn't see fit for rural communities that I represent to have an SRO the same as wealthy places like Franklin or Germantown.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed nay. Ayes have it.